Chad Hasty Show, thank you very much for tuning in today. We go to the phones, and Republican strategist Matt Mackowiak back on the program with us this week. Matt, good morning. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Chad. How you doing?
Doing great. Appreciate you joining us. Let's talk about some of the national scene. And this week, you've got the impeachment round. What is this? Round 2, 3, whatever you want to call it. This time it moves to the Judiciary Committee, Matt. For those who are just kind of I think there are a lot of people who are personally tuning out of the impeachment stuff. But for those who are kind of slightly tuned in and paying attention to this, what does this mean? What does this version of the impeachment hearings mean for the president?
Yeah, I mean, the way that the House Democrats divided this up, they decided to make the Intelligence Committee basically the body that would find the facts, that would, hold the so-called depositions, issue a report, which apparently they reviewed yesterday and may release as early as today. And then the Judiciary Committee would be the ones that would draft and pass the articles of impeachment, what he's actually going to be impeached over. And then that would go to the full House for a vote on the floor. And so that process, the Judiciary Committee process, begins tomorrow. Once they get the report from the Intelligence Committee, which is presumed to occur today. So, one of the big questions now is, what are the articles going to be? Are they really going to use the word bribery? Are they going to use the word extortion? They've talked about a lot of different things they want to impeach this president for. How disciplined are they going to be? How focused? How narrow will it be? Will it be broad? Will it take on things like the emoluments clause that they've talked about with the Trump Hotel in D.C.? Which really hasn't gone anywhere in the courts, but that's a different standard in Congress. So that's kind of what I think we'll be watching is to see, what direction they go in terms of the articles. There's also been some chatter that the Republicans on the on the Judiciary Committee will call Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff as a witness, and I don't know whether they'll be able to do that or not. I imagine they wouldn't be talking about it if they weren't going to call him, if they weren't going to be able to get him. But so that's just another subplot to watch. Schiff and his office had interactions with and communications with the whistleblower before the whistleblower filed the report, and so there's a lot of questions about that relationship. So yeah, we'll see kind of where it goes. It's obviously entering a third phase. The first phase was the private, secret phase, where they had witnesses give depositions and then leaked things that they thought helped set the narrative. The second phase was the public phase, which occurred over the last 3 weeks, 2 weeks of hearings, number of witnesses. I really think they undermined their case, and they certainly did not move public opinion in their direction, which was their goal. And now we enter the third phase, which is judiciary determining what the articles of impeachment will be. I guess the fourth phase will just be the floor vote. And I expect the floor vote to occur, maybe the week of December 16th, right before Christmas. I think that's what will happen, and it'll be basically a party line vote.
Do you anticipate that there have been a few news stories about what the articles of impeachment will be if the House does indeed move forward, that they could include more than just Ukraine? And I know you brought some others up. Do you think that Democrats are going to stick with just what everybody has been talking about, which has been this Ukraine deal? Or do you think the Democrats will try to, kind of throw all their eggs in a basket and see what they can come up with?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't have a lot of insight into their thinking. To me, I think, look, they haven't made the case. Look, I don't think they've made the case on Ukraine. They certainly haven't made the case on things that aren't related to that, like emoluments or whatever else they would talk about. So I think it'd be really strange and really unsubstantiated to throw in other wish list type items. This isn't their only bite at the apple. This they could certainly take other opportunities. They're going to continue investigating the president and the White House. They may eventually get access to witnesses and documents. There's been talk about some of the White House officials perhaps being forced to testify. But it sounds like that may not occur till January. So I guess my point is, if they want to pursue other things, I think they would be, much wiser to just focus on the Ukraine stuff. That's what they've been prosecuting for the last 2 or 3 months. They've really ignored all these other things. But it'll be interesting. Do they mix any of the Russia stuff into this? Do they mix the emoluments or anything else into this? I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do. And I think it'll be driven by what they have votes for. And keep in mind, you've got, a couple dozen, maybe even 30 Democrats in seats. I think it's 30 Democrats in seats that Trump won in 2016, and those folks are their voters don't hate Trump. They may not approve of his behavior at times or the way he acts, the way he says things, but they don't necessarily want to see him removed from office. And so those Democrats are in a tight spot. I don't know whether they feel comfortable on Ukraine, and I certainly don't know if they feel comfortable impeaching on things broader than that, where they really haven't made the case.
Yeah, visiting with Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show. Matt, I guess the president's lawyers and the White House said they're not going to get involved within the next week or so. Do you think that's the right move?
Well, I don't think they have much choice, because at the time they had to answer. They didn't know who the witnesses were for the hearing. They didn't have enough time to prepare. And so, it was kind of a ridiculous request. I mean, really, I think the Democrats wanted the White House to not participate so they could, chalk it up to more obstruction.
Right.
This is obviously just the first hearing. This first hearing is on the constitutional basis for an impeachment. I think they have a number of constitutional law professors that are testifying. So, I don't know the White House necessarily needs to be there for that. But yeah, the big question is whether they will be there going forward when the articles are considered. I don't know what additional hearings Judiciary is going to have. I imagine they're going to take this week and perhaps early next week to move forward with this. So we'll see whether they participate or not. I think it's high stakes in a way because they haven't really. The White House has blocked participation. In the first and second phases of the investigation, and so I just don't know whether they can continue to block participation in some areas and then participate in others. I don't know if that standard can hold or not.
How different will what we're seeing in the House, how this plays out? How different will it be once it gets to the Senate?
180 degrees difference. I mean, think of it in these terms, right? And this is the simplest way to say it. The Democrats are the ones in control in the House. They can control who testifies, when the hearings are, what the subject of the hearing is. They have much more control over leaks. They have control over process and procedure in the hearings. And, the minority in the House has very few rights. Now, in the Senate, the minority does have more rights. That's absolutely true. But it's again, the majority that will set the timetable for the trial. But ultimately, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell has said that they're going to use past precedent on impeachment, and ultimately the R's and D's have to agree on what that process is, and then it's actually turned over to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, who oversees the trial. And so once the trial begins, it's not going to be up to McConnell whether something happens or not. It's going to ultimately be up to the Senate, the Supreme Court Chief Justice. Now, in the early phase, what you're going to see Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham really control things, and he obviously wants to look into aspects of the whistleblowers' testimony and credibility. He wants to look into the stuff related to the Bidens. He's already asked the State Department, requested documents related to that. So this is going to be very, very, very different. And the Democrats were able to set the narrative and control leaks and control which facts came out. They're not going to have any control in the Senate. And it's going to be a very, very different situation for them.
Can the Senate call Adam Schiff to
yes.
Okay.
They can, and they can call Hunter Biden, and they can call Joe Biden. I don't think they're going to call Joe Biden. But they could potentially call Hunter Biden. They could potentially call the whistleblower. They could potentially call Adam Schiff. I think Schiff's probably the most likely of those three. And look, if Schiff, as he said at one of the hearings a week before last, doesn't know who the whistleblower is and has never had any personal interaction with him, then let's get that under oath. If it was the staff director, his committee, or some staffer there that ultimately, got the outreach from the whistleblower, and if it really is innocent, then let's find out what that is. But you can't be the prosecutor, the judge, and a witness. And that appears to be what Schiff is at this stage. So, yeah, I absolutely think he needs to testify, and I think Senate Republicans are likely to call him.
Yeah. Matt, tell folks what they can find, obviously, how they can sign up for your newsletter, and also about your podcast.
Newsletter is called Must Read Texas. We take all the top news from around the state, put it in one clean, easy-to-read email, and send it out every weekday morning by 9 a.m. Free one-week trial is available at mustreadtexas.com. The podcast is called Mac on Politics. It's available in the iTunes Store, on Google Play, on Stitcher, and on Spotify, and you can check it out any of those platforms.
All right, very good, Matt. As always, appreciate your time. We'll visit with you next week.
Look forward to it. Take care.
That's Matt Mackowiak here on the Chad Hasty Show, News Talk, KFYO.